If we are simply working in our own little silos, we miss the opportunity to do interdisciplinary work and to do really deep innovation work.
Jennifer, Kenny, thank you for being on my show, 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
Very well. Delighted to join you. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are you calling from right now?
I'm calling from Marin County, just north of San Francisco.
Oh, wonderful. Beautiful, beautiful area. Jennifer, I'm extremely excited for this talk because there's going to be a lot we're going to have to talk about because you have so much experience in the realm of innovation and leadership and balanced leadership, which we'll get to as well. And really the role of innovation within organizations. I'd love to start out with your journey. And who is Jennifer and how did you get to where you are today?
So I'm actually a geotechnical engineer by training. So I started off doing geology and chemistry. But that is the essence of systems thinking. So anyone out there who's a geologist, they know they're one of the best systems thinkers on the planet because we understand the planetary nature of systems thinking. And then I ended up doing work in technology because I wasn't as a woman, wasn't allowed to do the work I wanted to do in geology. And
really?
So I joined Anderson Consulting in London, and that began my career in technology. They effectively gave me the equivalent of a computer science degree, which was fantastic. And I have been in technology and information technology since. Most recently as CIO down at Stanford Research Institute, and now more recently very, very focused on the whole research and innovation space. So
research and innovation space, what does that even mean? What does that even entail?
Yeah, so what that entails is working directly with people who are doing robotics, autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, blockchain, all of that kind of work in their research capacity. So really helping teams of people do their optimal to build the emerging technologies that are going to be super exciting for the future, and we're beginning to see some of that already.
So what is your expertise in that realm? So you mentioned a bunch of different industries, and they're very, very different from each other, and each require different expertise. What do you see yourself as the added value that you bring when you're examining these different companies and you're working with these leaderships?
Yeah, so my specific expertise is in what I refer to as human innovation. Which is the ability. Yeah, so I ended up doing this work primarily because working in information technology, I always saw that there was a huge missing in people's ability to be able to do really, really good design work. And I don't mean product design work. I mean how it is that we actually co-invent together. And one of the enormously powerful capabilities for innovation teams today is the individual and collective human beings' ability to be able to co-invent. Because as our technologies become progressively more complex, if we are simply working in our own little silos, we miss the opportunity to do interdisciplinary work and to do really deep innovation work. So I focused through working with some of the really serendipitously working with some of the world's sort of thought leaders when I was younger in understanding human cognition and human language and how that influenced our ability to be able to innovate and co-invent. And I have brought that now through years of practice and discipline into the research and innovation space. And so I work with teams to increase their innovation capacity.
Okay, so Jennifer, I'm running a team, let's say. I'm starting a company and I have different silos and we're working on a variety of different projects. What are things as a leader that I can harness in the realms of innovation? How do I foster innovation instead of stifle it?
Yeah, so one of the things is really beginning to look at a different framework for understanding how it is that we manage and lead. Traditionally, all of our management and leadership paradigms and principles have originated from command and control, where we are the leader and we are supposed to be all-knowing. And those of us who've been around long enough know that that's a complete fallacy. And so it's really, how do you begin to enhance your capability to have the brilliance of your team emerge, and that you become a cultivator of emergence rather than you become someone who's telling other people what to do. And so it's beginning. So I would end up working with you to help you build that, build yourself as that observer, increase your capabilities in that space, and be able to really improve the autonomy and mastery of your team as a result of doing that.
Right. So I guess the balancing question, the complementary question to that is, what common pitfalls do you see amongst leaders? So, leaders are all around us, whether they're C-level executives at companies, or they're tech team leaders, or they're teachers in a school that are their own leaders in many ways. What do you see are some common pitfalls that people do that they're just harming both themselves and the team?
Yeah, I think one of the saddest ones is believing that you need to have all the answers. And a lot of leaders really think that that's their role. I think one of the fundamental differences between leaders who amplify others and who cultivate others are people who are really clear on what it is they know and what they don't know, and who are open to continuous learning from people all around them. And I think if you look at some of the more brilliant leaders today, they will openly acknowledge they hire people who are smarter than them, and they deeply listen to those people. So a lot of it is our belief that we should have the answers, and then our belief that listening is actually more about hearing than it is really about attuning yourself to someone else's brilliance, which is kind of what you're doing with this interview process. Right? You're tuning into what's unique and brilliant about these people I'm talking to.
Well, I'm definitely trying, and I think that one of the fun things that I get to do is I get to learn, really interesting things from every person's, insight. So you've had so many years of experience in this field, and I have the privilege of now staying here and sort of interrogating you to find those nuggets that could be meaningful in my journey. But that difference between hearing and tuning in, talk to me about that a little.
So what we tend to do is we tend to communicate with each other from the perspective of transferring information, rather than really taking the time to be deeply listen, be empathetic, and really understand what matters to other people, what other people are passionate about, what they care about, and how they see and interpret the world. And people can be trained how to do that. And in doing that, what they do is they begin to build the bridges and build the opportunities that allow them to be able to co-invent, where the capabilities of 2 people or 3 people or 4 people come together and produce something that neither of them could produce independently. So the amplifying and magnifying capability of people learning how to build this skill set and this competency is pretty significant.
So as we continue on this journey of, research with innovation, what is left to uncover, do you think? Because it sounds to me like, the way that humans are and the way you would do teamwork, there's been so much research done on that in the past, I guess, century. Is there much more to innovate when it comes to human innovation?
I think there's tons more. So we're doing a super interesting project with a client at the moment where we're looking at how do we really deeply understand the decision-making process of some of the lead innovators, what it is that they're seeing, how they're interpreting the world, how they're making those decisions, how much of it is based deeply on their experience and how much of it is replicable by other people. So we're literally building an ontology of research innovation and looking at how we do that. And then one of the other areas that I think is one of the biggest levers today, which is fundamentally underserved and not understood, is the gender balance aspect. I think
yes.
Yeah. We have long neglected, both within ourselves and across our teams, the ability of human beings to be able to expand their repertoire of understanding and interpretation of the world, to be able to encompass all aspects of our capability for at the most coarse level, from a masculine and feminine perspective from men and women, but also within the individuals where we're able to expand our repertoire of leadership traits and qualities and also understanding. And I think that as we see more women enter into the emerging tech space and also enter into the innovation space, we're beginning now to identify what are some of those leadership capabilities that are unique and that we want to cultivate and amplify. And then also what's the impact of those in terms of being able to increase innovation capability and accelerate our innovation ambitions.
Right. And actually, one thing that I just loved is you corrected me right before we started this show, because when you started talking about, the females and male leaders, and then I was talking, yes, diversity in tech is something that's very common. And you said, whoa, Michael, it's not diversity. It's 50% of the population. This is balanced leadership. And I just love that. I'm adopting that, and I'm going to be an advocate for that moving forward. So what is it about now? What is happening in this space today, and what do you think needs to happen so that we have more balanced leadership with all the positives that come with it?
Yeah, good. So I think it is about balance and not about diversity, because again, it is half of the global population, a little bit more than half actually, which makes it even more interesting. But I think what's missing in here is we've looked at this not as a business opportunity, but as a social justice necessity. And I think that is a huge fallacy that has undermined everything that we're trying to do. So as business leaders, some of the more sophisticated, advanced business leaders with tremendous foresight are recognizing that there is a goldmine of opportunity there. And if we can figure out how to leverage that opportunity, the leaders will obviously win there, the people who are the first movers. The difference that I have discovered through the research that I've been doing in terms of wasted opportunity is that we really don't have a way of talking about what it is that women are doing differently when they lead. And there's growing awareness, particularly with the pandemic, because we're seeing that the countries that are led by women have done much more successfully in the pandemic.
Yes.
Right? We're all asking ourselves why. And so I decided about 20 years ago that I was really interested in trying to understand what women were doing differently, and how could you name it? How could you identify it? How could you make it clear for other people so they could understand it? And then how could you move that to helping people value it and expand their repertoire of leadership? And not just women, but women and men, because some of the more brilliant men that I've worked for have both male and female leadership capabilities, and their ability to embrace those makes them better leaders. And so trying to understand not only how that works for us as individual human beings, but how that works across teams and how we can take advantage of that is something that I've been focused on for a while, and how that then impacts our innovation capability.
So, and does that also translate into your work with how women invest as a founding LP there and those sorts of initiatives?
Yeah, what's super interesting with how women invest, and I was talking to our general partner the other day, and I said, look, there's a radical difference between the traditional venture capitalists who have been venture capitalists in pursuit of capital and distributing, capital where they think they're going to make higher returns, and how women invest has built. And what they've done is they have produced really, I refer to it now, and there's growing awareness that this is what it is we're venture catalysts. Because what we're doing is we're taking money and using it to change opportunities for people, and not from a, for benefit or social justice perspective. We're taking the entire venture capital space and saying how women invest has over 100 limited partners. And what they're doing is that means that there are 100 women who understand the venture process, who are there to advise and support the startups, and who are having this catalytic effect across the community that they're in the middle of, which is 14,000 women across the world. And so the potential impact of that from a transformation standpoint is really huge. So wow. I'm super excited about the way my brilliant general partners have designed their fund and the potential long-term impact it can have across the community.
That's incredible. But Jennifer, I have to now transition a little bit to you and your passion, because How do you go from being a vice president at Wells Fargo and a senior director at Cisco and chief information officer and chief information and security officer at the Stanford Research Institute, and you go from there to having this surge of passion to cultivate innovation and understand better about balanced leadership? What made that transition? Why are you doing that?
So that it's not really a transition, because I've been doing that my entire career. I've always, so I'm fundamentally lazy, and I always look for what's the big lever. And so since the time I was younger than you, I went into business and I need to find the big lever. I don't want to have to work as hard as these crazy people around me. So for me, the biggest lever was, how do you reframe ideas? How do you change the way people think about things? And how do you bring people with you because they want to come, not because you're telling them that that's what they need to do? So my focus has always been on how do you engage human beings differently? And that, to me, is the biggest lever. If we don't understand how to be able to mobilize resources behind what we think is important and find commonalities with other humans, we're always having to do the heavy lifting. And so I've used this approach that I learned in my early 20s in everything that I've done. And it's allowed me to be able to build some incredibly powerful teams, because I'm focusing on the emergent capabilities. And that was actually the name of one of my companies. And then I've also used it to be able to go, how do I help other people do that so that they can build more powerful teams around them to be able to realize some of the dreams and passions that they have?
So give me one or two tips that I can take for myself as I try to empower others to want to join my team or want to do things because they want to and not because they have to, because it sounds like that's a key aspect of innovation and part of your success at all these wonderful companies and corporations that you worked at.
Yeah. So I think one of the things there is the design element is people tend to follow people who do brilliant design, because people who do brilliant design are looking to reduce the noise in the system and increase the signal. And what it does is it creates environments where I, as someone who would be on your team, can be more successful just by virtue of the systems that you build around you. So one of the little adages I've been using with some clients recently is an hour of design is better than 10 hours of delivery. And so the people who build their design capacity, and design thinking is obviously a fantastic tool for doing that, not just applied to product, but applied to everything that we do, is build your design capacity and then recognize that what you're doing in the middle of that design work is you're providing frameworks and constructs and opportunities for people to be able to learn and grow much more effectively.
Right. And is there some, the feedback loop that you're getting from people? I'm assuming that's a pretty big part of it, right? Because you could be thinking that you're operating in a certain way and that you're empowering people in a certain way. A lot of this is relationship driven. How do you get that feedback from others?
Yeah. So one of the fantastic things about the design thinking work and systems thinking is that you want to be able to expose yourself to as many feedback loops as possible. Right. So when you're doing your design, you're looking to immerse yourself, not just in feedback that other human beings will give you, that's super valuable, but also in feedback that the system itself will give you. So the focus on customer-focused work, the focus on customer-based design work, the focus on interdisciplinary teams who are going to provoke your thinking in different ways, and how do you really create an immersive experience for yourself and for your teams in the biggest, broadest ecosystem you possibly can, so that you're doing this constant learning. And commit yourself to that, but do it in a deliberate way. I think a lot of people might do immersive learning work, but if you're not doing it in a deliberate way, where you're looking to constantly improve your learning capacity and build mastery over that, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity. So I'm all about deliberate practice.
100%. By the way, you mentioned earlier that the part of your motivation for developing these processes and relationships is because you saw how hard people were working and you were trying to optimize a lot of things. And I think that it's pretty clear from this conversation that you're working much harder than most people that I know. So thank you for the inspiration behind both the optimization but continuing to work so hard. Jennifer, before we go, I have to ask you the most important question and the hardest one. 3 words that you would use to describe yourself, and why did you choose those specific words?
Yeah. So I'm a co-inventor. I love doing things with other people. I love seeing
co-inventor. I love that.
Co-inventor. Yeah. It's part of what I teach people to do. So I love being able to invent things with other people, and I love being able to see the brilliance and the beauty in other people and bring that out and share with them and create something bigger than both of us, or than all of us. So that's one of my favorite things to do. The other thing is I'm a pragmatist and an executor, because in the end of the day, there has to be value for vast amounts of other human beings. Otherwise, it's more effort than it's worth. And then the other thing that I do that a number of people have said to me that I have never really thought of myself as, but now I'm beginning to, is I name ideas. So I will see people kind of grasping for something that they want to make happen in the world, and I work with them to define that, to distinguish that, to translate that into an offer or a product or a service or whatever it is, and really name what that is, not from a marketing perspective, but from a development and deep understanding perspective, and name ideas and help them bring those ideas to reality. So I
love it. Jennifer, Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I know how busy you are, and I can't wait to share this with the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure, Michael. Take care. Bye.